Tell us how you got involved with Pirate's Passage.
Through a very tortuous, circuitous route. The book came to me when I was in Australia making a film with Matthew McConaughey. And I read it, and then I was so enamored with it that I read it again. It's not something that I don't read books twice. I mean, I read them twice in my life, but I don't read them twice in 2 days. And I phoned the writer. It had won the Governor General's Award in Canada for children's literature. It was cited as a work of genius, and it is. It's brilliant, and it captures perfectly the life of an adolescent, and particularly an adolescent who's suddenly without a father, whose father has died in a shipping accident. Well, no, whose boat was torpedoed in the Second World War. And it's set in 1952, and a man who is present, a pirate, who is present at the very beginning of the film in 1717, and who, like the Flying Dutchman, travels the world. He wreaked his havoc, created his justice in that town in 1717, and then came back 200 years later, 1952, to get the treasure that he'd left behind. And he goes to an inn where the treasure is hidden underneath, and the inn is owned by a woman who was married to that sailor who was torpedoed, and the boy. And he recognizes the need that the boy has for him, and he fulfills it. He teaches him. He takes him on journeys. They look into the fire, and they end up in a Viking ship. They end up in a ship in 1720 in the Caribbean. The captain takes him everywhere and teaches him lessons that, and he becomes an adult. He becomes a confident man. It's like a little bit of Kipling's if you can force the unforgiving minute to serve your turn long after the, you know. He just is, he's wonderful. It's wonderful.
And you chose to, you must have optioned it, you must have gotten it.
After I'd read it twice, I called him in Nova Scotia. I bought an option on it. Then I approached the CBC because for me it was a definitively Canadian piece of work, a piece of our culture, a fabric. And I went to the CBC, and they said, okay. And they were reluctant to do it in animated, but when I broke down how much it would cost to do live action that would be satisfactory, we agreed to animate it, and we found some people in Ottawa, Pip Animation, and they were grand. They were terrific. As you saw, did you see the?
Yes. It's
old-fashioned animation, but it's 1952. Yes. It's what it's about. It's taken, well, altogether 6 years, but I wrote the script as Sally Cato, who was the head of programming for CBC, was hugely influential in the progress of the script, because I would send it to her, and she would give notes, and every single one of those notes was perfect. No, because it never happens. Yeah. Mostly those notes are from people who are trying to advance their own careers and try to say something smart. This was a woman who understood perfectly the center of the film, sometimes way better than I did, and was able to just say one thing. I would be able to write it, send it back to her. It makes all my hair stand on edge right now. And so now it's going to be aired.
Was it your first go at writing? Was it your first experience writing, or had you written before?
I write all the time, you know. Sometimes I just write. I work with the writer on the script that I'm shooting, because, you know, particularly on the television program, because sometimes after a period of time I get to know the character probably better than they do, and it's never an imposition, or it's never intended to be an imposition. And people say that I do it correctly. So, okay. I'm in the middle of writing a book, but that's a whole other thing.
Novel? Yeah. Or
yes.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. How, this is not, well, this is animated, but it's not your first project for television. As an actor, what have you found, what creative freedoms have you found in television that are different from film?
I don't know whether freedom is the right word.
Okay.
That's an Anglo-Saxon word. Liberty is probably better, because there are certain liberties in that you're able to work for 22 hours on a character and so on. But there are limitations which really curtail your freedom, because more so than in movies, those notes that come down are from people who are really interested in advancing their own personal careers in the movie industry and are trying to make a note that they think somebody up there will think, oh, that's a smart note, let's give that boy a... And it's not helpful. And so it gets cut down and edited by those people who make those notes. And that's, I like to work for a director. And in television, you work for the creator, for the, and sometimes the creator doesn't have control. I like to, I mean, I was brought up, God, I've been doing this business for 60 years, but when I started making films, the director was always beside the camera, and that was wonderful. You know, when you work for Francis Lawrence, if he isn't directly beside the camera, he nearly is. And he's always present, always there. Same too for Gary Ross. It was wonderful working for those people on Hunger Games. Fabulous. And often it is, but often it isn't. Because you need that pull, you know, it's the same kind of pull. It's like a lunar pull. My daughter-in-law was due to have a baby on about the 17th of July this year, and she had our granddaughter on the 13th of July, and 13th was the night, she had it at midnight. 13th of July was the night when the moon was closest to the earth and was full. The maternity ward was full to overflowing. It was that lunar pool. She walked in, she said, I think I'm going to give birth. The doctor said, are you ready to push? She said, I think so. She pushed and the baby was born. It was like that. Yeah.
Wow. Hunger Games was an important movie for you to make? There was a special appeal for you?
You know, because I wasn't cast in it. My agent snuck me a script because he said, this is something you're going to love to read. And I read it, and for me, it was the most important political work that I'd seen in years. I thought maybe this will wake up what had been a dormant generation. And, you know, I thought maybe it would amplify Occupy Wall Street, you know, the Occupy movement. And it kind of has. I think, I hope. Certainly it's the intention. It was Suzanne Collins' intention. She wrote 3 novels, and we took the last one and made it into 2 movies. But when I said, I wrote a letter explaining why I thought this film was important to my agent, because I write letters, long letters, you know. Balzac said at the end of a letter, and I'm constantly quoting him, you know, I'm so sorry this is so long, I didn't have enough time to make it shorter, which is, you know, I didn't have enough time to edit and get the garbage out of it. But I wrote a long letter, and they showed it to Gary Ross, and Gary cast me. And then Gary did the unthinkable. He wrote 3 scenes of pure poetry. All the scenes in the Rose Garden were not in the script. Did you see the movie?
No, not yet.
Oh God, the first Hunger Games I'm talking about. It's a wonderful movie. All 3 of them. Well, the one I've seen the 3rd one. They're grand movies, and they're not for children.
Right.
They're for young people and for young adults, and for adults. And she's a genius.
Yeah.
Jennifer.
Yeah.